Welcome to our information session on iJAN enhancements. This webinar aims to inform iJAN users of the enhancements Human Resources has made to iJAN. These enhancements will not only assist in improving the university's operational and academic processes, but they will also aid in capturing the required information needed to comply with the Affordable Care Act, also known as the ACA. In addition, the enhancements will also improve the overall iJAN user experience for transactions related to part-time faculty. This webinar will walk you through the various iJAN changes related to all employee types, select temporary employees and graduate assistants, and part-time faculty. If there is a section that does not apply to your area, please feel free to use the table of contents and move to the section that does. Enhancements for all employee types. For all employee types, we have added a field labeled Physical Location as shown here on your screen. Currently, this information is captured on a post-hire basis. However, as there are payroll tax and benefit requirements that have been made within various states and cities, it is becoming more important to capture an individual's physical work location earlier in the employment process. As an iJAN user, we are now asking you to identify the state that the employee is physically working in. And if that state happens to match one of the cities currently monitored by our system for payroll purposes, such as New York City or Syracuse, you are also asked to select the city in which they are working. When completing the iJAN, if the city field populates for you, but the city you need is not listed, please select Other. If you select Other, the payroll department may follow up with you to determine if any additional information is needed once the transaction has been approved. Please keep in mind that if the physical location field is not completed correctly, you will receive the following error message, and you will be prevented from saving the transaction until it is corrected. Enhancements for select employees. For employees who have been coded as temporary in PeopleSoft and graduate assistants, we have added a new field labeled Expected to Work 30 Hours, as shown here on your screen. Please note, this field will not be requested on iJANs for which the individual has been classified as a regular standard benefits eligible employee, part-time faculty members, or students with a job code of 7900 or 7998. This field has been added because the Affordable Care Act requires employers to offer access to health insurance to certain employees who are reasonably expected to work 30 hours or more per week within the first 90 days of their hire date. Therefore, if it is reasonably expected that the employee you are hiring will be working 30 hours or more per week, then please select Yes from the drop-down menu. If the employee is not reasonably expected to work at least 30 hours per week, then please select No. If this is not completed correctly, the following error message will appear, and you will be prevented from saving the transaction until it is corrected. The following enhancements have been made to iJAN for part-time faculty members who are coded in PeopleSoft as temporary faculty, as well as regular faculty who are represented by the Adjuncts United Union. As shown on your screen, you'll notice that we have replaced the old per credit rate, credit hours, and additional hours fields with a more detailed grid. This new grid will allow us to better capture the information we need on a per semester basis, thereby decreasing confusion when entering full academic year appointments into the system. The semesters in the grid will be populated based on the iJAN job begin and job end dates you enter. Let's walk through an example of how the new grid will be populated based on the iJAN job begin and job end dates, as well as describe what each new field means. Above, you'll notice that I'm entering an iJAN for a temporary faculty member with the iJAN job begin date of August 24th, 2015 and a job end date of December 31st, 2015. When I do this, you'll notice that only the fall semester is populated based on the dates I entered. From here, I'm required to enter certain information based on the nature of the position. The first two fields we come to are credit hours and per credit rate. In our example, let's assume John Smith is teaching 3 credit hours for the fall and we are going to pay him a $3,000 per credit rate. Now you may say, well, I have a faculty member who has more than one per credit rate. How do I handle that? You'll notice that we have included functionality to the end of the grid that includes a drop-down for additional per credit rate. We'll talk about this in just a moment. The next new field we come to is the number of office hours and other hours per week. Based on the faculty member's appointment letter, this is where you will need to enter the total number of office hours or other required hours to be held each week. Examples of other required hours include performing research, attending department meetings, and student advising. Again, the hours entered here should all be based on what has been stated in the appointment letter and part of the compensation rate based on the appointment that you are entering in iJAN. Hours worked for attending department meetings or workshops or participating in student recitals, etc., for which those hours vary and therefore you'll be paying them additional compensation, should not be entered here. Please continue to report those actual hours that were worked or attended through online wrap. If the required number of hours change over the course of the semester or academic year, please be sure to not only issue a new appointment letter, but also a new iJAN. This is especially true even if the compensation rate does not change. Otherwise, we will not be able to rely on the information used in iJAN for purposes of the Affordable Care Act, and departments will be required to report information manually to HR. Going back to our example, based on the appointment letter issued to John, we told him that he is required to hold 2 office hours per week, and he will also be required to advise undergraduate students 8 hours per week. Therefore, I will enter 10 hours in the number of office hours and other hours per week field. Please note that if you are an iJAN user in the College of Visual and Performing Arts, please do not enter any hours for music or voice lessons here. We are requesting that you do that in the next 2 fields. The fourth field we come to is number of music hours per week. As alluded to a moment ago, this field is reserved for iJAN users in the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Here we are requesting that you enter the number of required hours to be spent teaching music or voice lessons. Please do not enter any credit hours in this field. It needs to be regular hours. And in the music hourly rate field, please enter the hourly rate for music or voice lessons. Please keep in mind that in all cases, you will be required to enter the credit hours and per credit rate, or number of office and other hours per week, or number of music hours per week and music hourly rate for that semester. If this is not completed correctly, you will receive an error message and you will be prevented from saving the transaction until it is corrected. Also, as mentioned earlier, we understand that sometimes faculty may have more than one per credit rate per semester. If this is true, then please select Yes from the additional per credit rate drop-down menu for the semester you are entering. After selecting Yes, you will notice the system will populate an additional row for you to enter the appropriate information. If additional office hours or other required contract hours per week applied to the second per credit rate, then you need to enter those total hours as well. We would also like to point out that based on the values entered on the grid, you'll notice that the total comp rate at the bottom will automatically be populated for you. The comp rate takes into account the credit hours in the per credit rate and/or number of music hours per week in the music hourly rate for that semester, and divides it by the number of pays within the semester or academic year. It's important to know that in all cases you will be required to either agree or disagree with the automatically calculated compensation rate by selecting Yes or No from the Comp Rate Agreement drop-down menu. If you select Yes, then the comp rate will remain uneditable. If you select No, then you are asked to select a rationale as to why you disagree with the comp rate from the drop-down menu under the Comp Disagreement Reason field. As shown here on your screen, we have listed the following reasons as examples of why you may not agree with the comp rate that has been automatically populated for you. For example, perhaps the appointment is based on a flat rate assignment rather than a per credit hour assignment. Or perhaps the appointment is less than a full semester. Or perhaps there are more than 2 per credit rates. Or perhaps the faculty member is not teaching and is only performing research, and therefore a per credit rate is not applicable. Please keep in mind that even if the faculty member is performing research, you still need to enter the total number of hours performing research per week in the number of office and other hours per week field above. Also, another reason you may disagree with the compensation rate is perhaps they are teaching Maymester or Winterlude. Therefore, based on the job begin and job end dates entered, the compensation will not calculate correctly. If the reason you do not agree with the compensation rate has not been provided within the list, please select Other and provide the rationale in the comments section below. It's important to keep in mind that even if you disagree with the compensation rate, please be sure to enter the appropriate number of credit hours and/or number of other required hours per week, if applicable, in the grid above. Again, these are required fields, so please keep in mind that if the comp rate agreement is not completed correctly, the following error message will appear and you will be prevented from saving the transaction until it is corrected. In addition, if the comp disagreement reason field is not completed correctly, the following error message will appear and you'll be prevented from saving the transaction until it is corrected. Next, let's walk through an example of how the new grid will open up based on the iJAN job begin and job end dates for a full academic year appointment. Please keep in mind that a full academic year iJAN is only appropriate if the per credit rates and the music hourly rate for fall and spring are the same. Otherwise, you will need to enter separate iJANs for the fall and spring semesters, just as you do today. As shown here on your screen, you'll notice that I'm entering an iJAN for a temporary faculty member with an iJAN job begin date of August 24th, 2015 and job end date of May 7th, 2016. When I do this, you'll notice that in addition to the fall semester, the spring semester also opens up. From here, I'm required to enter the applicable information based on the nature of the position. The first 2 fields we come to are credit hours and per credit rate. Based on John's appointment letter, he is teaching 3 credit hours for the fall semester, and we are going to pay him a $3,000 per credit rate. He is also required to hold 2 office hours per week. In addition, as an instructor in visual and performing arts, he is teaching 3 hours of voice lessons per week, and his music hourly rate is $25. Again, as a reminder, the hours entered in the number of music hours per week field must be the regular number of required hours to be spent teaching music or voice lessons each week. Please do not enter any credit hours in this field. For the spring semester, John is teaching 6 credit hours with a $3,000 per credit rate. He is also required to hold 4 office hours per week and will be teaching 3 hours of voice lessons per week with a music hourly rate of $25. Also, as a reminder, should you need to enter an additional per credit rate, the functionality to do so is to the right of your screen. Just as in our previous example, based on the values entered on the grid, you'll notice that the total comp rate at the bottom has been automatically populated for you. Another enhancement made to iJANs for part-time faculty is the multi-year appointment field. Previously, you may recall that we asked you to check the box for this field if the faculty member had a multi-year appointment. We have enhanced the functionality to make this a required field, prompting you to select yes or no from the drop-down menu. If you select no, then no additional information is required. If you select yes, then please provide the start and end dates of the multi-year contract. As is the case currently, please keep in mind that if you have a mid-year change to any of the information on the grid, then please ensure the begin date of the iJAN matches the effective date of the change. If your mid-year change to any of the information on the grid happens to be effective back to the beginning of the semester, please ensure to note that in the comments field as you do today. In addition, the begin date of the iJAN should be 2 days from the original start date of the appointment. If you have a mid-year change that is not related to any